Hi dear friends, I'm Nargiz, and in this video we will talk about writing task 1 in IELTS. But before we start, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to support me and like this video. As I've told you, today we will talk about writing task 1, but I want to highlight special sentences for you which you actually have to use. And why is it important? In task 1 they usually say summarize the information and make comparisons where relevant. So it's very important to make comparisons while writing your task 1 report and using the data which is given to you in the graph that they actually give you in your exam. So today we will cover the simplest sentences. It's comparison and contrast sentences. Firstly, we will start from contrast sentences, and we will cover some conjunctions which you can use to make some comparisons in the sentence. We will take as an example this graph, this line graph. It's an old line graph taken from one of Cambridge. Unfortunately, I don't remember which Cambridge book it was, but we will make some example sentences, especially from this graph. Making these sentences is not so difficult. If you practice a bit, you can easily write them. And let's look at some contrast sentences firstly. So firstly, we can use some conjunctions like although, even though, while, whereas, and despite. All of them have almost the same meaning. I say almost because while and whereas, they are a bit different, but you can use them also in the way that you use although or even though. For example, if we look at this graph, we can write a sentence like this. Although the level of carbon emissions in Sweden was much higher than in Portugal, approximately 9 tons as opposed to 1 ton, the reverse tendency had been observed by 2007, both of them being roughly 5 tons. So here I make a comparison. I show that Sweden and Portugal had a big difference, but now they are almost similar. Or we can make a sentence a bit different with despite. We can say despite being approximately 9 tons, the level of carbon emissions in Sweden decreased to almost 5 tons. So here I make the comparison of Sweden, how it was at the beginning and how it changed. Or we can say like this, while the amount of carbon emissions increased in Italy, it decreased in Sweden. Here I show some different patterns of two countries. One of them increased. In contrast, the other one decreased. You can also use some transition signals which show contrast, like however or nevertheless. And actually, they are used when you usually separate sentences. For example, you can say that the level of carbon emissions in Sweden was much higher in Portugal, approximately 9 tons as opposed to 1 ton. You write a full stop and start a new sentence. You say, however, the reverse tendency had been observed by 2007, both of them being roughly 5 tons. So here you separated two sentences, and at the beginning of the second sentence you placed however or nevertheless or nonetheless to show that these two sentences, they are like contrast sentences. And now let's talk about comparisons. To make comparisons in writing task 1, you can use these expressions in comparison with or to. There's no difference actually. You can say like this, in comparison to Italy or in comparison with Italy, the amount of carbon emissions in Portugal decreased. So you don't write that the amount of carbon emissions in Italy increased. You just say that in contrast or in comparison to Italy, the amount of carbon emissions in Portugal decreased. It means that the reverse pattern was observed in Italy. From this sentence, the examiner will understand this situation. Or you can use just the word in contrast or in comparison without any preposition to or with. You can just write the first sentence like the amount of carbon emissions in Italy increased, like from this number to this number, full stop, and in contrast, comma, this level for Portugal decreased, again, from this number to that number. So you can say, in Sweden, the amount of carbon emissions was 9 tons, full stop. In comparison, comma, Italy had the lowest carbon emissions. You can write the level of its carbon emissions in brackets. Don't forget to write numbers because it's very important for task 1, especially in body paragraphs. And also you can use 2 transition signals to show some similarity between 2 sentences. It's likewise and similarly. So you can say, the amount of carbon emissions in UK decreased, again, full stop, a new sentence. Likewise, the same tendency was observed in Sweden. UK and Sweden had the same pattern of change, both decreasing over 40 years. This sentence is also used to show similarity between 2 countries in your report. Well, dear friends, I hope that these sentences will be useful for you to use in your writing task 1 reports, because writing task 1 is really important, especially in terms of making comparisons. You have to logically make comparisons inside your report to get a high score from task achievement especially. Thank you for watching. See you soon in the next video.